than 1.5 million CD backdated salaries they are set to receive. We have the latest as another court suit is filed, bringing the total of court suits filed on this matter to 3.
This is Top Story with Evans Mensah.
And Top Story is always brought to you by Gasim Cement, the nation builder. It's also brought to you by Vodafone. Together we can. In the last few minutes, the Speaker of Parliament has been petitioned by the former head of the Volta River Authority, Dr. Charles Wekubrobe, asking him to cause the House to suspend all payments of salaries to incumbent first and second ladies as we begin to learn a bit more about the more than 1.5 million CD backdated salaries they are set to receive on the back of recommendations of the recent emoluments committee. Also tonight, there is another suit that has now been filed at the Supreme Court challenging the constitutionality of the payments. This brings the total of suits on this matter alone to 3. One of the suits, as we already know, was filed by the NPP's own Bono Regional Chairman, Kwame Bafo, also known as Abronya, popularly so. He filed that case at the Supreme Court, again challenging the constitutionality. The latest suit, which was filed today, is by ASEPA, which again does the same. So there are 3 different suits on this matter. We'll be speaking shortly to Dr. Charles Wekubrobe, who has tonight, on the back of the various suits, written to the Speaker, asking the Speaker to cause Parliament to suspend any payments until the Supreme Court makes a declaration on their constitutionality or otherwise. We'll come to that shortly. But first, we've secured a copy of that emoluments committee, a detailed copy of that emoluments committee. And we're beginning to learn more about the structure of these payments to the first and second ladies. My colleague Kweku Asante is in the studio with me, Kweku. So let's get into that. Let's first start about on the question of what exactly did the committee recommend when it came to this very controversial matter.
Right. So Evans, in this report, under the executive subsection of the whole report, under PCE 2020 recommendation 18, spouses of sitting and former presidents and vice presidents should be catered for. It goes on. But when it comes to president, it says the administration of President Kufuor introduced the extension of courtesies, including the payment of monthly allowances to spouses of former heads of state, president, vice presidents. Subsequent administrations have continued the gesture and even extended them to incumbent first and second ladies.
So that is giving us a certain
historical background
to this. Yes.
Continues that the gesture remains purely humanitarian to support and in some cases rehabilitate first ladies who are evidently struggling to subsist. However, there is no legal basis for this support.
Okay, so they themselves notes that the practice that had existed till now is not backed by law.
Yes.
Okay, so then it goes to what they were recommending.
Right. So it says, thus the committee recommends that the support extended to spouses of presidents, former presidents, vice presidents, former vice presidents be regularized and included in the privileges of presidents, former presidents, vice presidents, and former vice presidents. We have accordingly included these allowances at same level as currently pertains in Table 7.3 A and B on privileges, benefits, and facilities for the president and vice president. So if you go to this table, then you see what
we'll come to that. But the wording of this recommendation is interesting.
Yeah.
Because it says the spouses of sitting and former presidents and vice presidents should be catered for by the state as part of privileges extended to the president and vice president. There's an argument that says this only means that you're not necessarily having a separate structure for Article 71 so interpreted for the first ladies and second ladies, but you're simply is the same courtesy, is the same Article 71 that you're already complying with as it relates to the president and the vice, that you are as part of that privilege.
Yeah.
Extending it to cover the first and the second ladies, and that is one of the that's been a subject of some disagreements among legal watchers. But if you go into the details of what this means in reality, it's interesting because we pull that up from that document, and quickly let's go to that, because this is going to be, as I've just indicated, part of the privileges extended to president and vice president. So you need to go to, and they refer you to what. So you need to first ask, what are the privileges for the president, and the vice? Okay,
Yes.
let's go to that.
And so if you come here, you would see office accommodation, residential accommodation, security, transportation, and all other privileges that must be enjoyed by the president. It states everything while the president is in office and whilst the president is out of office.
Okay.
So interestingly, you see the spouse of the president as part of these benefits, and says payment of a salary equivalent to the cabinet minister MP as currently pertains.
But let's be clear on this.
Right.
This is for the wife of the president, when they are in office.
In office.
Okay.
Right. So whilst the president is in office, they must be paid a salary equivalent to a cabinet minister.
No,
who is
let's
also an MP.
clarify that. When the president is in office,
Yes.
his wife
Yes.
will be paid a salary equivalent to a cabinet
Minister.
MP.
Cabinet minister who is also an
Who are
MP.
Okay,
as
that's
it currently
pertains.
pertains.
I will
But
tell
if
you
they
what
leave
the,
office, they are to be paid 80% of a salary of a minister of state. If a spouse served one full term as president, or 100% salary of a minister of state MP, if spouse served 2 or more full terms as president.
Okay, so there are a bit of that to calculate. So when they leave office, so the suggestion is this recommendation that has now been approved by Parliament.
Right.
It's not only going to apply when they are in office,
Office.
but it's going to apply when they are out
Outside
of office.
yes.
When they leave office, the structure changes.
Right.
You pay equivalent of 80% of the salary of a minister of state who is also an MP if the spouse served one full term as president, and then 100% of salary of a minister of state and MP if the spouse served 2 or more full terms as president.
Right.
Now, this then, when you come to the vice president, is slightly different. So let's go to the wife of the vice president of, say, Dr. Baumia,
That is
whilst they are in office. What does he say?
Right. So if you get there, it says payment of salary equivalent to a cabinet minister who is a non-MP as currently pertains.
Okay.
So the president's wife will get the salary of a cabinet minister who is an MP. So let's say the salary of Kojo Bonkruma is a minister, cabinet minister, and also an MP. But payment of salary equivalent to a cabinet minister, non-MP, for the wife of the vice president.
Then slightly different when they're out of office.
Yes, so 80% of salary of a minister of state who is a non-MP if the spouse served one full term as vice president, or 100% of salary of a minister of state non-MP if the spouse served 2 or more full terms as president.
So you then need to go to again in the document. You go to the schedule that details what the salary of the cabinet minister MP is.
Yes.
Now, as of last year, because one of the things we didn't want to do was for 2021, it gives you that figure in points. You have to do a calculation of it, and there's a whole method for doing that calculation that they've spelled out in the document. We don't want to go into that because you might get it wrong. But they have what they have there in black and white for 2020. You can work with that. And so what we did was to say, what was it that they recommended for 2021, which has been approved? 2020, just last year. That's 7 or 8 months back. And for a cabinet minister who is an MP, he earns 33,270.
Right.
So that is what the wife of President Akufo-Addo, Madame Rebecca Akufo-Addo, will be earning
every month. 33,270 cedis.
Pay attention that this is backdated, as the committee has recommended, to 2017. If you do the calculation, it comes to
1,596,960.
Okay, so just a little over 1.5 million CDs there. So
close to 1.6 million.
Okay, so that's the amount that you expect Rebecca Akufo-Addo to receive now. And there's a question there about, so is there going to be a deduction of what she's earned already and then pay the balance? And so she might not necessarily take on the 1.5 million. They might calculate what she's received by the time already and take it out. I mean, that's a clarity that we'll need. And then when you come to the wife of Dr. Baumia, What is, because that's a cabinet minister,
non-MP, and cabinet minister non-MP receives 32,832 cedis. 32,832 cedis. And so that same one, if you do the calculation and you backdate it to 2017, what you get is 1,575,936, 1.575 million cedis. Right.
So that's the clarity that we have on these issues. We'll be talking very shortly with Dr. Charles Okrubebe, who was tonight writing to the Speaker
of Parliament
on this. We'll also be speaking, getting a sense of what Roxing Dafe-Amekpo, who we know he's already filed his writ, makes of some of the details that we are beginning to learn there. But we know that the PNC, the People's National Convention, they've issued a statement today, and they are in full support of paying of the first and second ladies. Let me bring in now Dr. Charles Okrubebe, who joins us on the telephone line right now. Dr. Okrubebe, thank you for your time here on Top Story.
Good evening, Evans. How are you?
I'm doing well. You've written to the Speaker tonight. Why that petition?
Well, it's not a petition. It's a clarification that I'm seeking. First of all, there's a lot of noise going on based on a statement purportedly issued by a minister of the government. The body that has to take this decision is the Houses of Parliament, based on the recommendation of a committee. But as one who spent all their life being a consultant, once the one who commissioned you accepts your report, it's no longer a recommendation, it's their decision. But so far, we haven't actually had any confirmation from Parliament as to precisely the decision that they took. So I think before we get overexcited, we should know exactly what Parliament approved, and then examine whether the legal basis that Parliament approved, what Parliament approved, is in consonance with the Constitution or not. Because I think we are all getting ahead of ourselves.
So for you, because the case has gone to the Supreme Court, you want the Parliament to stay
Well,
in the
I think even going to, what if we went to the Supreme Court and Parliament came and said we did no such thing? What I'm saying is that we need a publicly verified statement from Parliament or a record of Parliament's proceedings that says we have approved or we have decided on accepting the committee's report in its entirety. You know, I haven't heard anything from the leadership of Parliament as to precisely what they did with the committee's report. Nobody obviously has. And I think it's important, but before we go forward any further, the Parliament leadership must pronounce on the matter. And then we know how to proceed.
I'm going to shortly bring in a member of Parliament who was part of the Committee of the Whole that considered this, so we can get clarity on this. But I guess the questions you want to ask is, did Parliament approve the recommendations? Did they vary it? Or
yeah, exactly. And we want that to be confirmed by the leadership of Parliament.
I guess that,
I think we will all be clear.
I guess the question...
You know, what I'm saying is that a minister of the executive coming out to say Parliament has approved, there's no basis to carry on.
Okay, so but I guess the question then becomes, so what's the point of that clarification? What, in substance, what would that achieve?
Well, once we get a clarification, then presumably Parliament will tell us on what basis they accepted whatever recommendation was made, and then we can begin to question whether the recommendation they made is within the Constitution of Ghana. And then if people decide it is not, they could go to the Supreme Court.
But they've already cases have been filed. In fact, 3 cases have already been filed.
My position is that there is absolutely no basis for paying spouses of elected officers. You know, there is absolutely no basis anywhere. But before you take the decision to challenge the decision, you must know exactly what decision was taken.
But I guess I'm asking that because it may appear that those questions may be moot now because a member of parliament has already filed a suit at the Supreme Court. And
No, but that is
presumably,
the point I'm making. That member of parliament was part of the decision-making process. I mean, part of the last parliament. But if you look at the what they filed, they seem to be rather pointing their finger professor the committee, not at parliament. A recommendation from a committee becomes a decision of parliament. So rather than pointing the finger and saying that the committee's report is unconstitutional, we should be talking about the decision taken by parliament. That is what we can challenge the constitutionality of, not the report of a committee.
because it's only when parliament approves that it becomes law.
Yeah, so we need to know the approval.
Let me bring in Roxin Dafiamekbo. Of course, he's a member of parliament, a member of the Constitutional Legal Affairs Committee. He's, of course, in court already as part of the 3 suits that we've already seen. Roxin, so the question that Dr. Charles Okwuegbe is asking, the parliament approved this, correct?
That is correct. Good evening to your listeners. That's correct.
Now, if parliament did, his follow-up question is, was there a variation of the committee's report, or it was approved as we've seen it?
Thank you very much. Now, this was what happened procedurally when the Emoluments Committee finishes its work, as is done periodically. The report is brought to Parliament for approval, as it were. Now, as part of the approval process, it is laid and referred to normally the Finance Committee to consider, and then they will prepare the committee's report for debate in Parliament and the resolution passed subsequently. Now, at the time when the report was laid on the 4th of January 2021 and passed on 6th January 2021, the member for Wasawasi, that is the minority whip, raised the issue that, this is a 123-page report touching on the emoluments of all the Superior Court judges that we have in this country, all the 275 members of parliament and the speakership as well as their leadership, the president, and the president and the vice presidency, the chairperson of the Electoral Commission and her deputy, the administrator of the Common Fund, the shrag boss and the deputy, the auditor general, and all those categories of Article 71 office holders. So he pointed out that there is a small recommendation contained at page 73 of the report, which is saying that monthly salaries or wages be paid to the spouses of the president and the vice president. And this was what it said, that if the president served 1/3, then the spouse will be paid salary equivalent to 87% of the salary of a cabinet minister, of an MP who is a cabinet minister. The other recommendation contained in the same report says, if the president served 2 full terms, then the spouse will be paid salary 100% salary equivalent to the salary of a minister of state who is also an MP. So he said that is patently unconstitutional because there's no basis in the Constitution that permits the Professor Yan Tiamwa Committee to even venture into such an area. So to that extent, that particular recommendation ought to be struck out or deleted from the report so we could go ahead and approve of. The majority at the time, and still the majority now, refused. And so by the sheer numbers, they overwhelmed the minority led by the Honorable Muntakra in this matter. So the report, the 122-page report, was approved of, containing this clear recommendation. Now, Evans, here is the question. Somebody says that why didn't we raise hell? Why didn't we make noise enough? The thing is this. Still at that point, that recommendation remained a mere recommendation by the Yainti Amwa Committee. It is only when the president took steps last week to, as it were, direct the finance ministry to take steps to give effect to that recommendation, that is when we realized that the law has truly been breached, and therefore we needed to have it struck out. Where do you do it? It has to go to court. And let me also add that it is not every document, every policy that is approved by Parliament that metamorphoses into a law. It is not. Sometimes government policies come for approval. It doesn't make it a law. So all we are saying is that if the government is minded strongly about this process, they should come with a bill. In fact, the Honorable Muntaka told them that they were using a backdoor approach, and that they should come with a bill so that we can define properly whether or not we are only dealing with the spouses of the president and the vice, or we want to extend it to the spouses of the speaker and the chief justice.
I mean, Roxanne, there's a small matter of print interpretation that had also emerged, and if you look at the wording of the committee's recommendation, there is an interpretation that says it's actually not true that they recommended that you treat them as Article 71 office holders. That what they actually said in the actual wording is that simply include this as part of the privileges that you already accord the president, the former president, vice president, former vice president, under the Article 71 arrangement. And so this is not a separate recommendation, which then will be unconstitutional. But as we all do say to, as has been suggested, to the president's bodyguard, who would, it's part of the privilege that he will have, treat the wives as part of what you give them as part of the president's privilege. In fact, is the wording that the committee uses, and I want to quote that. The committee recommends that the support extended to spouses of president, former president, vice president, former vice president be regularized and included in the privileges of president, former president, vice presidents, and former vice presidents, such as you would do, say, for a security guy who's part of their privilege, such as you do for the gardener who is part of the privilege. What's your take on that?
Now, my take is simply this. What was the mandate of the committee? The mandate of the committee is to deal with Article 71 office holders. Now, who are Article 71 office holders? Why would the committee presume that when they were dealing with the emoluments of Article 71 office holders, the spouses of the president were not already factored into the existing arrangement? So if by parity of reasoning, then are they saying that the same reasoning, the same courtesies be extended to the spouses of the speakership, spouses of the chief justice, spouses of, say, the administrator of the common fund, spouses of MPs? That is the absurdity this reasoning will lead us to. So they clearly acted ultra vires their mandate. They ought not to have ventured, because already the spouses of the president, the vice president, are already catered for under the household provisions, which are the privileges of office. What happens if you have a president who is a bachelor? Or you have a president who is a polygamous
as has been
man?
suggested, maybe the side chick might take that amount.
So,
by the way,
so we have to have clarity. You see, Evans, I think the issue, Kweku Kwati raised the economic issue, and I'm saying that a policy may be in place, but don't come to Parliament to try to give it a legislative stamp.
I mean, let me ask you this quick for clarity. I mean, your suit is now part of 3 separate suits that have been filed. Same reliefs if you look at it, really.
Yeah,
Asepa Asepa has just joined. Very interestingly, the Bono Ashanti, the Bono chairman of the MPP too. Would you join? Would they be consolidated?
Yes. It's the practice of the Supreme Court to look at the reliefs of the suits, and if they are materially touching on the same issues before the court, they'll consolidate them and deal with them.
Okay, thank you, Roxing. Dr. Charles Okubobe, so your letter to the Speaker is gone. You asking for these clarities?
Well,
so
no, they are making a point. It's very important that we understand this. The committee may have made a certain recommendation, but if you look at the Constitution 7212, the one who takes the decision is the House of Parliament. So let's not be talking about what the committee should have done or not done. We should be asking Parliament, did you consciously approve this when it is the belief of some of us that it's unconstitutional? So if you're going to sue anybody or take anybody to constitutional court, what you should be saying is that whatever Parliament has decided is unconstitutional, not what the committee recommended. That there's no, it has no locus. It is what Parliament has decided. So if Parliament, who are the makers of our laws, knowingly did something illegally, then I think that establishes how we should move forward. It's important, to dwell on the committee. You can reject or accept the recommendation that somebody makes to you. Once you accept it, it becomes your decision.
Yeah.
So let's know from Parliament, it's true that they accepted the report. Did everybody accept it? Was it unanimous? Is it true as is being suggested? Then the minority demurred. And if they demurred, on what basis did they demur? No, these people are working for us. They work in the name of the people. They are on our behalf. Not every decision they take must be known to us, not secret. So anything that anybody says, they took a decision as a whole, and we have no record of them.
I mean, you know how these emoluments approvals work. This is what they call the committee of the whole. They lock the doors, sack everybody else, turn off the cameras.
No matter what committee they call it.
And in fact, this is not even the committee, the entire house.
Yes. Of the people of Ghana who elect them. What they do must be known. If I go to UK, I'm not even a citizen there. I know exactly what every MP, minister, etc. is paid in terms of salaries and allowances. That is what the Republican democracy demands, that you account to the people. You don't decide, well, you employ me, but you don't need to know my salary.
I'm grateful, Dr. Charles Okubobe. Grateful, Roxanne Dafiamek. But listen, what do you make of this controversy? That's the subject of Ghana Connect, which starts right now.